The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, crystal shards scattered across the luxury spa's reception area as Jung Mi-rae stumbled backward, her hands clawing at her face. Liquid fire consumed her skin. "Help me, please. Somebody help me." Her screams echoed through the pristine hallways, raw and desperate, the kind of sound that comes from a place beyond pain, from the soul itself being torn apart. Yoon Se-ra stood frozen in the doorway, her perfectly manicured hand covering her mouth in what anyone watching would believe was genuine shock. But if you looked closely, really closely, you might have caught the briefest flicker of satisfaction in her eyes before she composed her expression into one of horror. 3 weeks earlier, life had been perfect. "Jagia, you're going to love the wedding venue," Kang Ji-hun had said, his arm wrapped around Mi-rae's waist as they stood on the balcony of his family's hotel overlooking the Han River. The sunset painted Seoul in shades of gold and rose. "Your mother still doesn't approve of me," Mi-rae had whispered, leaning into his warmth. "She thinks I'm not good enough for the Kang family." Ji-hun had turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "My mother will come around. I chose you, Mi-rae. I will always choose you." She had believed him. She had believed every word. The Instagram notification had lit up her phone later that night. "Yoonsera_official has followed you." Mi-rae had clicked on the profile, scrolling through images of a stunningly elegant woman posing in Paris, Milan, New York. Something about the account had felt calculated, too perfect. Mi-rae had taken screenshots, following her instincts. The first meeting with Se-ra had happened at the Kang family's monthly dinner. Mi-rae had worn her best dress, had prepared herself for another evening of barely concealed disapproval from Ji-hun's mother, Mrs. Kang. But Se-ra had changed everything. "You must be Mi-rae." Se-ra had glided across the room, her silk dress flowing like water, her smile bright and seemingly genuine. "Se-ra, dear, come sit next to me, Mrs. Kang had called out, her tone warmer than Mi-rae had ever heard directed at herself. "Tell me about Paris. I heard you were working with LVMH?" As Se-ra had launched into stories of European high society, Mi-rae had watched and listened. Over the following weeks, Mi-rae documented everything. Se-ra's increasingly frequent visits, the subtle undermining, always wrapped in compliments, always deniable. The way Mrs. Kang grew colder as Se-ra grew closer. Mi-rae also started her own investigation. She hired a private investigator. Within 2 weeks, she'd learned that Se-ra hadn't been studying abroad. She'd been fired from 3 luxury brands for embezzlement and fraud. She'd left Paris one step ahead of criminal charges, saved only by her family's money and connections. She'd also learned that Se-ra had been obsessed with Ji-hun since university, that she'd returned with a specific mission, to destroy whoever stood between her and the Kang family fortune. When Se-ra had called with the spa invitation, every instinct had screamed danger. "Mi-rae, it's Se-ra. I feel terrible about the misunderstanding with Ji-hun. Let me make it up to you. I know this exclusive spa. They do the most amazing facial treatments." Mi-rae had smiled into the phone, her mind racing. "That sounds wonderful." When, after hanging up, Mi-rae immediately called her investigator. "I need everything you can find on this spa, the owners, the employees, and any connection to Yoon Se-ra. I need it by Thursday." The report was damning. The spa was owned by a company Se-ra's family had invested in. The head esthetician had gambling debts. Mi-rae should have cancelled, should have confronted Se-ra, should have gone to Ji-hun with everything she'd discovered. But she made a different choice. She went to the spa, wearing a small camera disguised as a designer brooch. She positioned it perfectly to capture everything. She hadn't expected the pain to be so absolute, hadn't expected to lose consciousness, hadn't expected to spend 3 weeks in a medically induced coma while her body fought for survival. But when she finally woke, when the doctors told her the extent of her injuries, when she saw her ruined face in the mirror, the rage that consumed her was cold, patient, and utterly focused. But the police had already been there, influenced by the Kang family's lawyers. The case was closed. Tragic accident, signed consent forms, no evidence of wrongdoing. That's when Mi-rae learned that Ji-hun had walked away, that Si-ra had crafted her narrative, that the Kangs had paid off her initial medical bills as courtesy before cutting her loose. Dr. Choi Yeon-soo found her 2 days later on the hospital balcony, staring down at the street below. "Don't jump, doctor," Choi said. "Not because your life isn't over. It is, in a way. The life you had, the person you were, she's dead. But you get to decide what rises from those ashes. And I can tell by the look in your eyes that you're not thinking about peace. You're thinking about revenge." Dr. Choi wasn't just a nurse. She was a renowned dermatologist who'd rebuilt her own life after tragedy. She was also a woman who understood that sometimes justice required more than the legal system could provide. "Work for me," Dr. Choi had said. "I'll provide all your treatments free of charge. I'll teach you everything I know. Medicine, chemistry, business. I'll make you an expert. What do you have in mind?" Mi-rae had taken the folder with shaking hands. "Patience," Dr. Choi had said. "Revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. First, we heal you. Then, we make you powerful. Then, when they've forgotten all about you, when they think they've won completely, we take everything from them." The plan took 3 years to execute. During the first year, Mi-rae endured 7 surgeries. Between procedures, she studied obsessively: dermatology, cosmetic chemistry, business management, corporate law. She learned how to read financial statements, how to trace money through shell companies, how to identify fraud. Si-ra's past was a treasure trove of criminal activity. Mi-rae hired investigators in Paris, Milan, and New York. She found victims, women Si-ra had defrauded, companies she'd embezzled from, a pattern of destruction that spanned a decade. Mi-rae contacted every single victim. She built a network of women who wanted justice, but had been denied it by wealth and corruption. She also tracked the spa esthetician Lee Hae-jin, a woman with a sick mother and crushing debt. Mi-rae found her working at a massage parlor, barely surviving. Mi-rae approached her carefully, wearing a mask to hide her healing face. "I'm not here to punish you. I know Si-ra threatened your family. I know about your mother's cancer treatments. I know she paid you 3 million won to destroy my face." Hae-jin collapsed, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She said it would just be a bad burn, that you'd heal in a few months. "I didn't know it would." She looked at Mi-rae's masked face and dissolved into fresh tears. "I need you to document everything," Mi-rae had said. "Every conversation with Si-ra, every payment, every threat. I need you to keep evidence safe. And when the time comes, I need you to testify. In exchange, I'll pay for your mother's treatment. All of it. And I'll make sure Si-ra never touches your family again." The second year was about building Phoenix Skincare. But not just as a business. It was a weapon. Mi-rae formulated her scar treatment serum with Dr. Choi, but she also ensured every product was meticulously documented, clinically tested, and legally unassailable. She created a company with transparent finances, ethical practices, and a reputation for absolute integrity. Mi-rae also carefully cultivated relationships with journalists, prosecutors, and activists who specialized in corporate fraud and crimes against women. She donated generously to causes, attended charity events, built a public persona of someone who'd overcome tragedy through determination and integrity. The third year was about infiltration. Mi-rae learned that Si-ra's marriage to Ji-hun was already crumbling. Si-ra's gambling addiction and shopping habits were draining the Kang family fortune. The hotel business was suffering under mismanagement and scandal. Mi-rae quietly bought shares in the Kang Hotel Group, not enough to be noticed individually, but through various shell companies and investment groups. She also discovered that Mrs. Kang was desperately trying to save the family business, that she'd begun to regret the marriage she'd pushed for, that she'd started to realize Si-ra was destroying everything she'd worked to build. Mi-rae arranged for an anonymous package to be delivered to Mrs. Kang, financial records showing Si-ra's gambling debts, evidence of affairs, proof of money being funneled from Kang accounts to offshore havens. Not enough to implicate Si-ra criminally. Just enough to plant doubt, to start fracturing the marriage. The second package went to Ji-hun. Photographs of Si-ra with other men, credit card statements showing extravagant purchases, evidence that she'd been lying about everything. The final piece fell into place when Lee Hae-jin was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Mi-rae paid for the best treatment available, but the prognosis was grim. Hae-jin made her decision. I'm going to die anyway. Se-ra can't hurt me or my family anymore. Let me tell the truth. Let me do this one good thing before I go. Are you sure? Mi-rae had asked. It will be difficult. Her lawyers will attack you. I'm sure. I've kept your secrets for 3 years. I've watched you heal, watched you build something beautiful. Let me help you finish this. The video testimony was recorded, notarized, and placed in a secure location with instructions for release upon Hae-jin's death. 6 months later, when Hae-jin passed, her family followed her final wishes. The video went viral within hours. The media explosion was immediate and catastrophic for Se-ra. But Mi-rae had orchestrated far more than just a dying woman's confession. The video release was synchronized with a coordinated assault from every angle she'd spent 3 years preparing. The same morning the video dropped, 23 women from across Europe and Asia published their stories on a dedicated website Mi-rae had created, the Yoon Se-ra Files. Each woman detailed fraud, manipulation, and destruction at Se-ra's hands. Within hours, major news outlets picked up the story. By afternoon, prosecutors in 3 countries announced investigations. By evening, Se-ra's family's stock portfolio had lost 40% of its value. But Mi-rae wasn't watching the news. She was making calls. Mrs. Kang, Mi-rae said when Ji-hun's mother answered, her voice calm and professional. This is Jung Mi-rae. I imagine you're having a difficult day. The silence on the other end was deafening. I know you're wondering how much I knew, and when I knew it. The answer is everything and from the beginning. I let her reveal exactly who she was, and who your son was, and who you were. I have recordings of every conversation, Mrs. Kang, every dismissive comment about my background, every time you undermined me. Mi-rae, please. I now own 17% of Kang Hotel Group stock. I'm now the 3rd largest shareholder. And tomorrow morning, I'm calling for an emergency board meeting. Mi-rae's second call was to Ji-hun. Kang Ji-hun. We need to talk. Mi-rae. His voice cracked with emotion. I've been trying to reach you for hours. The news about Se-ra, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. You should have done many things. But we both know you're not capable of doing what's right when it's difficult. The third call was the most satisfying. 2 days later, Mi-rae walked into the detention center. She'd dressed carefully. A simple but expensive suit, her hair styled elegantly, minimal makeup that couldn't hide her scars but somehow made them seem like marks of distinction rather than damage. Se-ra looked terrible. Her perfect makeup was gone, revealing the real face beneath. Harder, older, calculating. Her designer clothes had been replaced with a prison uniform, but her eyes still held that sharp intelligence, that predatory awareness. Jung Mi-rae, Se-ra said. I wondered when you'd come to gloat. I let you burn my face, Mi-rae said softly. I let you destroy me, because I knew that half measures wouldn't be enough. I needed you to commit completely to your cruelty. I needed you to reveal exactly how monstrous you were, and I needed the world to see it. Se-ra's eyes widened in genuine shock. You sacrificed your own face for revenge? Se-ra looked genuinely shaken. Every person you tried to use as a weapon, I turned into a witness against you. You're not just going to prison, you're going to become an example of what happens when privilege and cruelty finally meet accountability. Mi-rae walked to the door, then paused. Every day you wake up in a cell, remember that young Mi-rae, the woman you tried to destroy, is out there living her best life, being everything you could never be. She left without looking back.